Hey everyone, I'm DT10, and in this video, I'll be reviewing Minecraft 1.17, aka the Caves and Cliffs Update Part 1. Hope you enjoy. So, just as a quick disclaimer at the start of this video, all of this is just my opinion, and I'm just here to showcase all of the features. This might not be your opinion, so if you have a different opinion, please be sure to leave them in the comments down below. Now, let's get on with the video. So the first thing we're going to be reviewing is the copper, and straight away I really love these textures. I love that you can get stairs and slabs for every single oxidization process bit, and I love the texture of these bits at the bottom as well, the normal copper, not the cut or anything, just these ones. The fact that it's got that gradient to me is really cool. And then I love that you can also wax them, so these ones are all waxed at the bottom here, and then you can also scrape it off with wax off, as you can see down there, if you use an axe. And I really like the particles. Now, personally, they're a little bit too in your face for me. They're quite bright. However, there is one thing that I don't like quite as much, and that's that I wish there was stairs and slabs for these ones at the bottom. I think they would look really cool, instead of just the cut copper ones. But all the same, copper for me is a really nice addition. And so you've then obviously got all of the other stuff that comes with copper, for example, the lightning rod. Now, again, I really like this, not just because of its functionality, but also because it looks so good, and they connect and stuff. I think this could make some really good builds. And then I also like how they do interact with copper. Now, what I mean by this is I'm not going to demonstrate it right now, but if you have copper blocks and then a lightning rod on top of it, it will actually reverse the oxidization process when lightning strikes the lightning rod, which I think is really cool. Then you've obviously got raw copper, which I quite like. Now, personally, I'd prefer it if they drop the ores like they used to. I do get, however, that it's quite good in the sense that you can now use fortune. These textures for me aren't quite as good as they could be maybe, but I do really like the copper ingot here. Then you've also got these raw blocks. Now, these ones are a little bit strange for me. I personally don't really feel the need for them. I don't really think there's a purpose to them, and I'm not a particular fan of the texture. However, in building, they may be quite helpful for certain things. I mean, maybe it might just be beans. But yeah, my overall opinion of these raw blocks aren't too great. And then you've obviously got the two ores. Now, we'll come a bit onto ores later, but I kind of just wanted to demonstrate them with the copper section. So I like these textures a lot. I think it's really nice with all of the different colors in there. And yeah, overall, copper for me is a really great addition. So next up in this review, we're actually down in the caves, and I wanted to showcase this thing. Now, it may not look like much from the outside, but if you were to find this in survival, it would be amazing, because you break your way in and you find this. A really nice amethyst geode. So I recognize that they were a little bit hard to see there. I was kind of showing you what you might find if you were to find this in survival, but this is it with night vision. And I like pretty much everything about this. First of all, I've got to comment on the sound. I mean, if I turn my sound all the way up to 100% for these things, you may be able to hear these. They're very quiet, but it's better if I place them. As you can hear here, they make an incredible sound, and I really like this one. Now, from a building point of view, there's not much you can do with this texture. Like, it's a really nice texture for what it does. However, there's not much you can do with it in terms of building. And then you've obviously also got the amethyst clusters, which grow from a really small one, a medium amethyst bud, and you've got the small amethyst buds. You've got all of the variants, and then you've also got the budding amethyst, which is the ones they grow on. But then the other things that I particularly like about these is these two blocks here, the calcite and the smooth basalt. So straight away, the calcite is fantastic for building. It has this lovely marble texture, and I really like how you find it on the layers of this amethyst cluster. And then you also have what replaced tuff in the early snapshots, and that is smooth basalt. So as you might be able to expect, you get this block from smelting basalt in a furnace, and I also really like this one. I think it's a bit of an inverted colors of this one, and I really like what you could do with it for building. It makes a great sort of ash kind of block, and as well as that, it fits really well with the deep slate. You can see an example of that here. You could do some really cool gradients with this, and it even fits nicely in both the overworld and the nether. And then finally, I wanted to put the spyglass in with these amethyst geodes, because you craft them out of these amethyst shards that you get from mining these in survival mode, obviously if you don't have silk touch. And I love the spyglass too. Now, I wish there was a bit more space on the black side, so you can see to the left and the right there's just some black bars, and I know it does make sense. However, if you press F1, look, you just get absolutely none of it. You just get the zoom, and I kind of wish this was just how it was all the time, so that you could still see your hotbar and stuff, but you were able to do this. But overall, I really like the spyglass as well, and I love how it looks when you go into F5 mode. That's just brilliant. So for me, overall, these amethyst geodes are really nice, and I love this addition to the game. It's just a shame that they don't come with all of the rest of the new caves. Now, we did talk about this briefly a second ago, but the next thing I want to move on to is all of this. These are the deep slate blocks. Now, once again, I love these. I really love the texture of these, and I love how much variation there is. So there's a reason I'm using my wall for the intro here, and that's because there's so many, I couldn't really be bothered to place them all out. And a particular one I love is the deep slate tiles. We have never had a tile block in Minecraft before, and if you were to use these slabs, I think it would make a really cool roof design or something similar. I just really love these, and like I said, I love how much variation there is, particularly between the cobbled deep slate and the deep slate. Now, of all of them, you may not have been expecting me to choose these two, but I just really like how different they are. If you compare them to stone and cobblestone, they're obviously not quite as different, but I just love how much you could use these two blocks in a build. And by the way, if you hadn't already realised, a lot of this is me talking about how I'm going to use them in builds. I just thought I'd warn you now. However, there's one thing that I don't like quite as much, and that's the mining time. So while for now, as the world height isn't quite increased as much as it will be, so we only go down to Y0 in the world still, these generate in patches between 0 and 16, and I personally really love that. However, as soon as we go down all the way to Y64, this will completely replace stone, and it's a lot slower to break, which might make mining quite annoying. I mean, to put it in perspective, here I have just an ordinary netherite pickaxe, and then I do have haste 2. Now, imagine this is from a beacon or something. This is how slow the stone is to mine, and then if you compare that to the deep slate, there is a big difference, and the main difference is this. So, as most people know, if you combine an efficiency 5 diamond or netherite pickaxe with haste 2 from a beacon, you insta-mine all of this stone, as you saw there. However, on deep slate, this isn't the case, and it may seem like not much of a difference. However, when mining, I think this will make such a difference, especially if you're used to insta-mine. So overall for me, all of this deep slate is really nice aesthetically and has so many uses. However, it's not quite as nice for its function or where it's going to be placed. So I'm now going to be talking about texture changes, and of course this includes all of these new ores here. So for me, my opinion on all of these textures is quite mixed. So I'm going to go through coal first. This coal texture for me is kind of meh. I mean, I do prefer it, but I kind of prefer the old texture as well, and let me explain why. So this coal texture for me is more realistic. It looks like it's got pieces of coal in it. However, for me, it's a bit too advanced for Minecraft. Like, I'm used to all of my ores pretty much looking the same, apart from the odd lapis or emerald, although I suppose that's me just being used to the old textures. For me, this is actually one of my favourite of the new textures, and then I'll explain why in a second. So next up, you've got your iron ore. And I had a bit of a roller coaster with this one when it was going through the snapshots. I hated a lot of them, and personally for me, this one still isn't as good as it could have been. However, I don't hate it. I do kind of like it, and similar to the coal one, it is very realistic. Like, you can imagine seeing this in the world, and it looks like iron. And I guess, unless you're talking about coal ore for ash or something, ores never really had a great purpose in building, so I suppose it's an improvement. So you've then got the copper ore, which I kind of already commented on, and then you've got the gold ore. Now, this is personally my least favourite ore, and the reason why is that it just looks a bit too much like stars for me. Like, this bit in particular here looks a lot like a big sort of star, and that's not what I imagine gold to look like in the world. That's not how I see my gold. So we'll go over all of the raw ores and stuff just in a second with this ore section. However, for me, this just doesn't resemble gold. I don't really like this one at all. Then the reason I put diamond here is because it has changed a little bit. The texture's actually shifted, and it has got a couple of pixels different. However, this is actually one of my favourite changes, because like with all of these new ores, it looks really 3D, and I really like that. Like, it looks like it's sunk into the ore almost, so I really like that. Then you've got the lapis, which I think is a really positive change. I love this one. Then you've got the redstone, which is my second to last favourite. I don't like this one at all. I really don't like this texture, I'm afraid. And then you've got emerald, which hasn't changed much, and I think I probably preferred the other one, but for a new one, it's not too bad. So there you go, that's my opinions on all of these new ore textures. I won't really go through the deep slate ones because they're pretty much just the same. However, you may notice I've actually got a clock and a compass here, and that's because this section isn't ores, it's mainly just for major texture changes. And these two are the biggest of texture changes for items. And personally, I don't particularly mind the clock, but I really dislike the new compass, and that's because every time you open up your inventory, you have to see it, and I don't really like how thick this section is here. Overall, I don't really think the compass is a positive change. However, the clock, again, it looks a bit more 3D, so I do kind of like it. And then you've got all of the raw ores. Now, I kind of like the concept of this, but I'm not used to it, and I don't really like the texture of the blocks. Like I said, ironically, my favourite would probably be the copper one, even though I was complaining about it over there just a second ago. And that's purely because, like I said with the copper one, I don't really think they serve much of a purpose. Now, I know in the future you will be able to find these in the world with large ore veins, and then you can craft them into 9 of these, obviously, but you've never had something like that before ores-wise. Like, you know, you've never found an emerald block somewhere, or a diamond block in the world. So for those reasons, I'm not a particular fan of the blocks. And then you've got the raw ores themselves. Now, I don't really like the texture of any of these, and I will never get used to finding these in the world at all, but I guess it's an improvement if you consider fortune enchantment. So I do want to demonstrate that fortune thing that I'm going on about very quickly. So first of all, I've got this netherite pickaxe, I've then got a fortune 3 netherite pickaxe, and I've got a silk touch pickaxe, and I'll explain the uses of these in a second. Now, it always used to be that if you have an ore like coal ore, or diamond, or lapis, or redstone, or emerald, then it would just drop one of those for every time you mine it, and if you use a fortune pickaxe, it would drop more of those. Now, that time I only got 1, and that time I actually got 3, as you can see there. However, there used to be these ores, and that's why I've got a silk touch one, that if you mine them, it would just drop that ore, as you can see like that. That's just how it's always worked. However, now, if you have the fortune enchantment, and you mine these, and then it starts to work like all of the other ores, as it's now raw materials. So, as an example, if I mine all of these, it's just 1 for 1. I've got 1 raw ore for each of these. However, with fortune, I get even more. And so, arguably, that makes sense. It's a bit more consistent with all of the other ores, and therefore, that's why I was talking about it's a bit of an improvement fortune-wise. Now, on with the rest of this update. So we're now going to be moving on to some more of the new blocks in this update, starting with the technical ones, or at least that's what I'm going to refer to them as. So first of all, you've got powdered snow, or at least it's called powdered snow bucket. And personally, I love this. I love how it works. I love that you get the things around the outside when you stand in it for too long, as you can see there. I love that your FOV zooms in a bit. I love all of this. And then the best bit is, if you're in survival, as you can see there, you start to freeze and you get these incredible frozen hearts, and I absolutely love that. And then as you come back out, it slowly all fades away and your FOV goes back to normal. Now, if you're wearing leather boots, then suddenly your experience is very, very different. Now, if I just stand here, as you can see, I'm taking no damage at all, and I can even stand on top of the block just like it was a normal block, and you get an advancement. Now, this is probably a good time to mention that I won't be covering the advancements in this update, as there's quite a lot of them, but anyway, that's why I really, really like the powdered snow, and I just think it works really, really well. Then the final thing that I love about this powder snow is if a skeleton, like we've got here, starts to freeze to death, and you can see him starting to shudder here into this powder snow, he actually turns into a stray. And the reason this is so good is because, as some other people have covered, and I might leave a link to them in the description if you want to check them out, you can make incredible stray farms out of this, as you just saw there. And this is a really, really, really cool addition, and so I think this will make for some very interesting farm designs. So next up, you've got dripstone, particularly pointed dripstone. Now, I won't really be commenting too much on the block, although it does look pretty cool. There's not much I can think of building wise, but I think it'll be an interesting one to find in the world in all of the caves. And then you've also got pointed dripstone, which is what I mainly want to focus on, like I said. Now, these can be placed either way, up or down, and they then also connect like that, which is really, really cool. Now, personally, I love these. All of the mechanics that go with this and the texture is just incredible. And then the fact that it's also one of those satisfying blocks where you break the bottom one and they all fall is just an added bonus. But there's a bit more that I want to talk about with the one that's like this, the one facing downwards. So very quickly, I will, however, just be covering damage. So obviously, you've got increased damage, where if I go into survival mode here, I take about 2 to 1.5 hearts of damage. However, if I go from roughly the same height on this thing, as you can see, I take a lot more, and it's the same with the pointed up ones. You see, if this thing falls on your head, as you can see there, and by the way, I love that looks so cool, then once again it is increased damage. Now, this one's a little bit harder to demonstrate, and for that reason I simply won't be doing it. However, you kind of get the idea. But that's not all with these hanging dripstones. As you may have been able to see there, they are actually dripping water, and that happens if you put them on top of a dripstone block, and therefore if you put a cauldron underneath and I was to turn the tick speed up, then these cauldrons should slowly start to fill up with water. However, if I place a lava bucket on top of these two dripstone, then the drips will now change to lava, which I think is really, really cool. And the main thing about this is that you now have a renewable lava source. Now, unfortunately, for some reason, these don't seem to be filling up very quickly at all for me. I mean, right now, my tick speed is on 999999999, so they seem to be taking quite a while. Now, I'm not sure the exact number of how long it takes, but I do know it is a while, so we'll come back to this later and see if they filled up. However, there are more technical blocks to cover. So next up, we've got the big drip leaf and the small drip leaf. Now, the small drip leaf has to be placed on moss, which is why it is down here. However, these big drip leaves can be placed absolutely anywhere. And therefore, this makes some great parkour, because if you stand on one of these things... Oh, wait a minute. I think my tick speed might be a little bit too high. Oh dear. My game has crashed. Hang on. As I was saying... Oh... Well, it seems to have worked, just very, very delayed. Yeah, okay, they do fill up. I knew they did. I think my game just couldn't quite handle 99999 tick speed. Anyway, more technical features on the way. Like I was trying to say, the big drip leaf, if you stand on it, you will actually go all the way through. And like I said, it doesn't need to be on a moss block. However, the small drip leaves do. And you can then also grow these, I believe, with bone meal. But then you can also stack these as far up as you want. And so obviously, if I was to stand here and then fall through in survival mode, I would take a bit of damage, which makes for some very, very interesting parkour maps. Oh, and with the high tick speed, you can kind of tell that these weren't waxed. Anyway, we're now moving on to the final blocks in this update. So first of all, you have got Tough, and I absolutely love this texture. In my opinion, it's kind of just a better andesite. Like, I know they're not quite the same, but I just absolutely love how this looks. It seems like one of those blocks that would hurt to run your fingers over if this was real life. So I really love this block. I think it definitely lives up to its name. You've then also got a block which I've just realized should have gone in this section over here, and that is Tinted Glass. And what's really interesting about that is it doesn't let light through. So in there, the light level is actually 0. If I encase myself in this tinted glass and press F3, the client light is 0. However, the moment I punch that block, it is 13. So this stuff is really, really cool. And that means you can actually add glass to your mob farms now. And then you've also got with the lush caves, the moss block, the moss carpet, the azalea, the flowering azalea, and the azalea leaves, and the flowering azalea leaves. So first of all, we'll start with the moss block. Now, I love this. It's another vegetation block. It's a bit like grass, but without the dirt side. So I think this has some really cool uses. And then you've also got the moss carpet, and to have a vegetation carpet block is so, so good, because what you can do is do something like this. So if you have a dirt block, you can place one like that with a moss carpet on top, and it basically looks exactly the same as a grass block. And now it does. Take two. Before it changes to grass, it looks like another version of the grass block, just without so much of that texture, and I think this can be used in some really, really creative ways. Then you've also got the azalea and the flowering azalea. Now, these are really cool. We finally got proper bushes in Minecraft. So I kind of love both of these, just the fact that the flowering azalea is so colourful, and this one just looks like so much of a mini tree. And speaking of trees, this actually works like a sapling. So if you were to bone meal one of these, like you can see here, it turns into a massive azalea tree. And that's where you can now see our azalea leaves and our flowering azalea leaves, which again look really, really cool. It just adds more variety. However, I really wish there was an azalea log instead of just using oak in the trees. That would just add to the ever increasing list of log types that we have in this game, and I think it would just be really, really cool. However, we are not quite done with the lush section over here. We have next got rooted dirt. And this has a pretty cool texture. Now, for me, it's a little bit too similar to normal dirt. However, you've then also got hanging roots themselves, which when placed on a block look like this. And I really, really like these ones. I think they look particularly good. And then obviously, if you have a hoe and you right-click this block, it turns into normal dirt and you get your hanging roots. And I personally love this. And then you've also got a very, very cool block. Now, this is the Spore Blossom. Now, I love the texture of this, and I particularly love that there's now particles all around. That's so cool. However, I do have a couple of criticisms with this block. Number one, I personally think the particles spread a bit too far out. Like, there are particles all the way over here, and the Spore Blossom is all the way over there. And then my second criticism is a little bit of a weird one, but personally for me, this icon just isn't quite right. It doesn't feel Minecrafty enough. It's very, very 3D, and it's very HD. It looks a little bit wrong, in my opinion, in my inventory. So yeah, overall, the lush part of the caves for me is a really, really good good thing to see. And then I wanted to put this with the lush caves bit, just because it's from caves. And this is actually the glow lichen. Now, it's basically another vine, and I actually really like the texture of it. I also like how it spreads if you use bone meal. It's very sort of linear. It doesn't spread in random directions. You know exactly where it's going to spread, which is actually kind of handy for using in buildings. However, the main difference between it and vines is that it can actually be placed on the top of a block. So the vines can only be placed on the side. However, this can be placed absolutely anywhere, including the upside of a block like that. So it looks really cool if you could surround a block. It almost looks infested like that. And then the obvious other thing is that it glows. Now, you can't see this because I've got night vision on. However, if I go into a cave and get rid of this night vision, so this would normally be a completely pitch black cave, and for the most part it is, but you then just instantly, your eyes are drawn to these glow lichen over here, and it just illuminates the caves. Not only make it easier to see, but it adds some incredible ambience to this caves, and just adds so much to them. You can see some more examples of it over here, and I personally just absolutely love this. However, the only problem is I'm probably going to mistake it from lava once or twice. So that's almost it for this update. However, we haven't actually covered mobs yet, and there are 3 main mobs being added in this update. Number 1 is the axolotl. Now, this thing is really cute. I love this, and the fact that it attacks other mobs is so cool. And it also plays dead. For example, if I hit this once or twice, as you can see, it will start to play dead. Now, we're not actually getting a great example of that there, but I'm not sure what best way to show this. Actually, that's a much better way of doing it. If I go into survival mode, it instantly plays dead and has this regenerating particle effect. And then if this is my axolotl, if I put it in a bucket and it was mine and I tamed it and everything, then it would actually give me the regeneration effect as well. So overall, I think this is a really great addition. And you've then got the goat. Now, there's a reason we're doing this in a strange order and coming out of the water, and I am aware of the glow squid, but we'll get onto that in a second. You have got the goat, which I love. I really love how this thing looks and how it interacts. And then you do also get a screaming goat, which I'm not going to go over, but yeah, it kind of makes a noise like that, just a bit more like a scream. So I think these goat mobs will be really cool when we have the new mountains. But then finally, for this update review, we have got the glow squids. Now, these are obviously very controversial, and if you're not sure why, just have a little look on Google. I'm sure you will very quickly find an answer. Now, for me, I do kind of like these. I really like the texture, and I do like that they are visible from afar. Like, they may not emit light, they may not glow in that sense, but you can see these no matter what. So a much better example of this is if I change the time to night. As you can see, they are instantly visible. They are instantly recognizable for glowing. And while they don't emit light, I don't really see that as much of an issue. But then there's a lot more that come with these glow squids. So when they are killed, these drop the glow ink sac. And this can be used for a number of things. Number 1, the worst of them in my opinion, glow item frames. Now, I'm not particularly a fan of the texture. I don't think it's too good. However, the point is when you put an item in them, it will glow. So you can see a better example of that at nighttime. As you can see, it does glow a little bit. However, in my opinion, it's just not visible enough. This isn't the best thing. However, the best thing is this. There's a reason I have an oak sign in my inventory, and it's not to demonstrate the glow item frame. It is to demonstrate this. If I was to write anything on this sign, and I was to use the glow ink sac, it would turn like that. And that is so cool to me. The fact that you can dart as well and it gets that outline is just incredible. And yeah, it does actually glow. So if I set the time to night once again, this text is visible from very far away. Like, you can still see the red on that sign, and I'm into the jungle at this point. So I really love this, and I think it's really cool. And so with that, that is everything for this update review. Now, I have almost certainly missed some stuff, and for that, I apologize. So please let me know what I've missed in the comments down below. However, there's also one thing I'd like to say. This video may have been a little bit worse than some of my others, and it may not have been quite as professional as some of my Dalek mod update reviews. So as I said in my Discord server already, I'm using this as a little bit of a filler video. So my Dalek mod survival episode will be coming out next week, and the reason I'm using this as a filler video is because it is taking a lot longer than I expected. But don't worry, it will be well worth the wait. It's not a finale or anything, don't worry, the series is not ending quite yet, but it is already looking incredible, and I really hope you enjoy it when it comes out. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like or comment, and if you'd like to see more reviews like this, then please subscribe. But I've been DT10, and I will see you in the next video. And sorry, that goat just rammed a horse. Okay, bye.